We're going to talk today about, big word, dialectics. And you shouldn't be scared by the word because all it really means is looking at one issue from two or more points of view. And the reason why I think this is such an important aspect of the way in which we view our world and ourselves is that current in our culture is a kind of obsession with singularity. I don't know quite where it was born, but we seem to celebrate the individual, in my opinion, to an unhealthy degree. And the knock-on effect of that is that when things go bad in our lives, we are taking perhaps an unhealthy degree of responsibility for the emotions that we're feeling. So let's start with a phrase that we will hear so often and read also in the media, and that is this one. You know what you should do? You should trust your feelings more. This is a big influence in our lives, is it not? That instinct is seen as somehow sacred, or that our feelings are seen as somehow the most perfect part of what identifies us as an individual. That we celebrate the things that we feel as in some way holy. Falling in love would be the most obvious and simple example. You don't choose who you fall in love with is another expression that we'll hear a lot, as if there is something that's going on in our emotions that should rise above every other aspect of the way that we live our lives. Now, what I'm not saying is that we should become some kind of weird robot that doesn't trust our feelings. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm asking us to ponder is the notion that we should see talking to ourselves as a healthy pursuit. So there's another thing that we are biffed with on a regular basis. When we hear the expression, talking to yourself is the first sign of madness. And I'd like to flip that and say, no, talking to yourself is the first sign of sanity. So let's use an analogy. If you're in a boat and you're crossing the Atlantic, you're in a little tiddly boat, and you're mad enough to think, I'm gonna cross the Atlantic on my own in a little boat. People do this from time to time, and they will have GPS. We're living in a time of electronic support and tools. The first thing you're going to do is have a GPS. In fact, you probably have a couple of little different gizmos that will tell you the direction you're going in, the speed you're going in, and various other things. So you use your GPS. But we all know, because we have them on our phones and in our cars, that the little tinkers have glitches. And that from time to time, when you say, I'd like to go, I don't know, to Oxford, it starts steering you towards Timbuktu. And we swear and we curse and go, bloody thing. And so I would argue that our emotions are identical to a GPS. Some of the time, and you might say most of the time, they point us in the right direction and we're okay. But some of the time they don't. And if you're a sailor in the middle of the Atlantic, or worse, if you're rounding the Horn in a force 9 gale, you don't rely just on your GPS. You get out your compass, you get out your sextant, and these are funny little instruments that have been used for 400 or 500 years, and we double check to make damn sure that when the GPS is going, you're going towards a rock, you're going towards a rock, that actually it's accurate, and very often it's not. And when it's saying, don't worry, the water is calm, water is deep, there are no rocks to bump into, crash, as you puncture the bottom of your boat, that you have not relied just on that electronic system. Our emotions, I would argue, are the same, and we should not be trusting our feelings more. We should always, I would argue, have a healthy skepticism about what our feelings are telling us. So dialectics, this big word, is the best way, in my opinion, to live a healthy life. And as we go into other podcasts, you'll see that what stories do are, in a healthy way, splinter our personalities into a cast of characters. You may have seen the Pixar movie Inside Out, which was about a pubescent girl. She's hitting puberty. Things are going pretty crazy hormonally. And we go into her head and we see 5 or 6 characters who are aspects of her personality. And they argue amongst themselves about what the right thing is to do. And I think this is a cracking way to stay healthy. If we see ourselves not as one monolithic, one sort of big individual, and where our feelings are suddenly rising up and we go, oh no, I feel guilt or I feel shame. But if we see ourselves instead as a brain that has a cluster of competing voices, this is a sort of healthy way of looking at a split personality. There's a wonderful therapist called Peter Golach who's done an enormous amount of work on this. And what he describes as a personality is this: the whole ever-changing mosaic of an infant's, child's, or adult's traits that make that person unique from other persons. So we can still hang on to our sense of individuality, but what we're not doing is saying that this one very potent voice in our head, the emotional voice, is who we are. It's not who we are, it's part of who we are. So what Peter Golach talks about a lot is an inner family, as he describes it, of talented subcells that evolve over time through a series of developmental stages, and that they're influenced by both aging and different life experiences. And I would encourage all of us to look at that as a healthy analogy of the way in which we operate. I hope you enjoy this, and I'll hope that you come and check out more of what we've got to say. Bye-bye.